Now, in this chapter, we are dealing with the factorial ANOVA. Now, in the previous lecture, what you were dealing with was a one-way ANOVA when there is only one independent variable. Okay. Now, the factorial ANOVA is basically when there are two or more independent variables that are doing. So there are a few things you want to kind of think about. There is now when you have two independent variables that's going on, then you need to kind of think about how they can influence one another. So essentially, you're looking at something called the interaction effect. Okay, now you can kind of look at the independent variable as one at a time. So you can look at the independent variable A and then independent variable B. So when you're looking at independent variable A, you are basically neglecting the effect of B. And when looking at B, the effect of independent variable B, you're essentially neglecting the effect of A. Okay, so there are aspects that you need to look at, and this is basically it's called the overall main effect, and that's something that you're looking at when you basically neglect one of the independent variables and you're just looking at the pooled data in just one independent variable alone, as if the other independent variable actually does not exist. Okay, so now in your uh, data set 9.1, or there's a typo here, but it should say 9.1. It's basically going to dealing with something called the 2 by 2 factorial ANOVA. Okay, now this is the easiest form uh, of the design. Okay, so this is the very easy way to kind of show you how to perform the factorial design. Okay, so that just take a look at this. And I think in this textbook, they're only gonna teach you how to do the 2 by 2 between groups factorial design. Now, this is something that later on, when you get to experimental or advanced experimental, you're going to have to learn to do as well. Later, how to do a mixed model or a repeated measure factorial design. But for the purpose of this course, you only need to know how to do the 2 by 2 between groups design. Okay, now let's go on and dive into data set 8.1. Okay, clinical psychologist is conducting research on social anxiety. She has heard that a new medication shows great promise in treating social anxiety, though there is some debate over the best dosage. Although these advances in pharmaceuticals are promising, she firmly believes that some type of cognitive behavior therapy is a necessary component in reducing this type of anxiety. She wonders if there might be differences in anxiety level depending on type of therapy, individual versus group. Okay. To better understand how these two factors work to reduce social anxiety, she gathers a sample of 32 individuals who report having difficulty as a result of social anxiety. Each person is treated with either 10 or 20 milligram of the medication and is also provided either group or individual therapy. After 1 month course of treatment, she asks the participants in her study to report the number of social interactions they initiated during the last week of treatment. The data follows. Okay, so now let's take a look at this first. Okay, so what is the first independent variable? Well, that would be the medication. Okay, now the second independent variable that you're looking at would be this, the type of therapy, okay, with two levels, either group or individual therapy, okay. And now what is the outcome? The outcome is, okay, so she asked the participants in her study to report the number of social interaction. So the reported number of social interactions by the participants, that would be the dependent variable. Okay, now the data follow. So let's take a look at this. Okay, you can see that each number represents the number of interactions that this person had that belongs to that group with a stranger, I guess. Okay, so you can see that independent variable A, independent variable B, okay, A is the dosage of the treatment, and then independent variable B is therapy, is the type of therapy, either individual or group. Okay, so and then the dependent variable is the number of interaction. Okay, now let's take a look to see what we can do with this. All right, I'm just gonna delete the previous chapter. We don't need that anymore. Let me start up a new file. Nope, new data. God. All right, so let's see what does your textbook want you to do. Okay, so it wants to set it up like this. Okay, so you got dosage, that is the first independent variable, okay, and therapy, that is the second independent variable, and down here, this is the number of the initiation, so that will be the dependent variable. So you can see that first one is the first independent variable, second one is the second independent variable, and the third one is the outcome, that's the dependent variable, okay? So that's zero, the decimals, not that it's important, but okay, now the next thing what we need to do is to give values the label, okay? So the dosage, we're gonna name 1 as 10 milligrams, okay? And then 2 as 20 milligrams, okay? Add, click OK. And now, and let's go down and write this. Okay, so now you can have therapy. Okay, let's code this also. Let's do exactly what the textbook it says. Even I don't really agree with it. Okay, but okay, so here, so the value, the 1 is going to be individual therapy, and then 2 is going to be group therapy. Okay, click add and then click OK. Okay, now we're not gonna enter anything for the initiation because that's just a pure number, so there needs to have no values anyway. Okay, now let's switch to data view like how we had before, right? Okay, so what are we putting in? Well, we're essentially putting all the numbers. Okay, this is gonna take a while, so feel free to fast forward this part, but I'm not gonna. Okay. Okay, that part I just remember. So the what you actually need to do is to set up. Yeah. So this 10. Now, how many do we have? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so 8 per group. Okay, so we just copy this, score this down. Okay, and then we, and that's the first one, and then we got this, and that's finished this one. So this people, they got 10 milligram, and then they got individual therapy, right? So they got individual therapy. Copy this down. Okay, now what about the next group? So the next group, we're gonna look at the 10 milligram and that received group therapy. Okay, so copy this down to what, 16. Okay, now this is going to receive 2, and you see that it's going to tell you its group. Now, if you enter 2 and then you only keep seeing 2, then remember to use this to toggle back and forth. Okay, so copy, paste. Okay, now what's now next we're going to enter the one that got the 20 milligrams and the one that got the individual group. Okay, so 20 milligrams okay? And these are the ones that got the individual. No, and 32, and these are the one that got the group, okay? Therapy, copy and paste. Now, what you need to do now is just to copy the numbers over, okay? Now this part, you can fast forward if you want to. Okay, I input all the data and I check them. Now let's see what do we do next. Okay, so what we need to do next is essentially go to analyze general linear model univariate and so the initiation goes into the dependent variable. The fixed factor goes in, well, the dosage and the therapy goes to the fixed factor, okay? Now we need to pick the EM means over here and then load all of these in here, okay? And then check this and then check the OSD. Okay, now go down and what else do we need to do? Well, what we need to do is go to options and make sure these are checked. Okay, descriptive stats, estimates of effect size, the observed power, and the homogeneity test. Okay, and then when you're done with that, hit continue and then hit OK. Let me just scroll this a little bit forward. Now let's take a look at the results. Okay. Um, So the results basically tells you what the means are, the standard deviations, and the number of the people that belongs into that group. Okay. Now the Wien's test for of equality of error variances. This basically tell us the homogeneity of variance. Now the variances are not significantly different because the p-value is greater than 0.05, which means that since the variances are not different, you can go ahead and use this parametrically, okay? So now what happens when the significance is significant, let's say less than 0.05, that means that at least one group, the variances is significantly different from other groups, okay? So what that means is that the kurtosis of the distribution is not necessarily follows like a normal distribution, at least for one set of the data, okay? And then so that would actually mean that you should not, I mean, I'm not saying you cannot, but you should not run a parametric test such as the ANOVA when you see a Levene's test of equality of variances that is significant. Okay, now since we don't, we can go on and do the parametric test, which we already did, the factorial ANOVA. Okay, now what we are essentially looking at is the test of between subjects effect. So this is the factorial ANOVA results by itself. Okay, and you can see now so here is the main effect of the dosage. Okay, and then you got main effect of the therapy and you got main effect of the interaction. Okay, interaction effect, and there's no such thing as a main effect of interaction, just interaction effect. Okay, now let's take a look at this. The degree of freedom that you're looking at for pretty much everything you're looking at is going to be 1, comma 28. Okay, so 1 is going to be the degree of freedom for the numerator for all three of them, for the dosage, therapy, and dosage by therapy. Okay, and then for all the denominator is also the same. It's going to be 28. Okay, so it tells you right here. All right, and then now these are the three numbers from here: 12.9, 35.897, and 5.744. These are the F values. Okay, now factorial ANOVA, you kind of want to treat it as a three separate results from the ANOVA. And essentially that's what it is, because you got the overall main effect of independent variable one, overall main effect of the second independent variable, and then the interaction effect of the first by the second independent variable. Okay, so you are going to get three F values, and then you're going to get three P values as well. Okay, so no, so do we have the overwhelming effect of the dosage? Yes, we do. Do we have the overwhelming effect of the therapy? Yes, we do. And do we have a significant interaction effect? Yes, we do. Okay. Now, let's go down and hmm, and take a look at the actual tests. Okay. Okay, dosage. So you can see that this is the actual mean. Okay, so the dependent variable tells you this is initiation. So this is the mean for the dosage, and this is the standard error for the dosage. Okay, and now over here, they're just giving you the comparisons, kind of very similar to the previous um, chapter that's doing. So you can just kind of go back and look at that if you want. And then the same thing for therapy. So don't worry about the univariate tests here, okay? Now, so the same thing about for the therapy, and it's just like another uh, independent variable that you're doing. So now let's go down and talk about something that's a little bit more unusual, and that is the dosage by therapy. Okay, so over here you're looking at basically the mean and the standard error as well. Okay, but uh, but what you are seeing is that they're showing you group by group means and the standard error. Okay, so this is something that's really important um, to do essentially. Okay. Okay. Now we have everything that we need to look for. We just need to provide the interpretation. Okay. And then when we're done with the interpretation, then we will do the graphing. Okay. Now the interpretation for the factorial ANOVA is basically you want to say that there a significant effect of the first independent variable? Is the significant effect of the second independent variable, and then is there a significant effect for the interaction? Okay, so so over here, the first thing that they are basically essentially is the first factor is the drug dosage. Okay, and then they test this on two levels, 10 milligram and 20 milligrams. So you should write something exactly down like here. So this the analysis show a significant effect of drug dosage on mean number of social initiations made by the participants in the study. Okay, now how did they get this number? Well, this number they got it from plugging in the numbers essentially. So F, let me go up back up. Okay, so we get this from this number. So 1 comma 28, as I said before, and then look at this dosage equals, so the F value is 12.92, okay, and the P value is less than 0.05, okay, and then over here they're writing about like the mean number of initiation was significantly higher for those treated with 20 milligrams. So okay, so now how did they find this number? So essentially they're looking at this number over here. So this is the overall mean effect that they're looking at when they're looking at the mean. Okay, so you can see that, let's show you this. So 17.5, 70.5, and then this number 14.5, 14.5. Okay, so now let's go down to the second factor, and that is the form of therapy. Okay, so this factor, so over here, what they wrote is the results of the analysis yielded significant differences in mean number of initiation dependent on type of therapy. Okay, F parentheses 1 comma 28. So that's exactly as what I told you before, and is this number. So when you go to therapy, and then when you look at this, that is the 13.89. So the author rounded up, okay, and the p is less than 0.001. And over here, they also have a participants that the interpretation that participants receive the group therapy. So they got the number from here. So the participants that receive the group therapy, okay, so the group therapy, the mean is 18.5, made significantly more social interaction than those treated with individuals um, individual therapy. So 13.5. So over here, you see how they did it. Okay. Now next, let's take a look at the interaction effect. Okay. So this is looking at the each individual means and not the collapsed data that you saw in the previous two independent variable. Okay. Now, so essentially the kind of interpretation that you are going to give is there a significant interaction or not? Okay, so in this case we have a significant interaction, right? So because when we are looking at the test of between subjects effects, right? So this is sorry, down here, the dosage by therapy, what we see is a significance of the p-value of 0.023. Okay, so this means what? Well, this is less than 0.05. Okay, so that means that there is some sort of interaction that's going on. Okay, so what you need to write is something like this. Okay, you can see that 1, they got it from this number, that's 1. And then 28, they got it from here. And then 5.74, they got it from here. This is this column, this row, sorry. And then P equals 0.023. Okay, you can just write a P less than 0.05, that's fine. Okay, and then now let's see here. And you see that there is a long ass amount of reporting for the means. Okay, so because basically what you need to report is not just 2 means, but over here you need to report 4 means. Okay, so you need to report each individual levels at so you basically 2 by 2, right? So because we have two by 2, that means we're going to have 4 numerical averages for each group. So so 1 for each group, I mean. Right, so you can see that the one that they're getting, so the one that they mentioned first is those that given 10 milligram of the medication, group therapy result in many more social initiations, okay, than individual therapy. So they're first looking at individual, okay, versus group in the 10 milligram in a 10 milligram dosage. Okay, so this is why you're looking at 18 comparing with 11. So group versus individual, and both of these in a single level of receiving 10 milligram. Okay, now the next one, then they're going to talk about the next one. Okay, for those treated with the 20 milligrams of the drug, those treated with the group therapy still initiated more than those exposed to the individual therapy. Okay, but the difference was much smaller. You can see that, okay, because when you look at the difference, you can see the difference is 7 here, and now here it's the difference is only 3. Okay, so what was the interpretation that your textbook gave? Well, they said that these findings suggest that although group therapy does appear more advantageous in treating social anxiety than group therapy, its efficacy differs depending on the dosage used in the medication component of the treatment package. Okay, so which means that the effect is more pronounced in group versus individual in 10 milligram of dosage, and that effect is more diminished, okay, that affect differences between group versus individual is more diminished when the dosage is increased. Okay, so I think that's about it. What we need to do now is to actually graph out the data. Okay. Okay. Now, so let's graph out the data, and then let's start with the Excel. Now, your textbook is, I want to use the word lazy because that's actually not the correct way of saying it. But then I want to say that your textbook is rather incomplete when it comes to the actual data because you will see that. Let me go on with this first, and then I'll tell you what I'm really saying. Okay, and now let's take a look at what were the actual data here. So okay, so we got they're all whole numbers. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy this over from the textbook then. 16, 19. Okay. So what you can do from here is you just highlight this entire thing and then insert um, and pick a line graph because it's easier for you to see interactions this way. And then go down to that and let's get rid of the grid lines. Okay, and this is something I like to move to here. All right, so that is looking pretty good. Now, what else is missing? Well, the chart title. Okay, so we're going to say effect of drug and therapy on number of social interactions, initiation, sorry, initiations. Okay, so this is the dosage, right? And then this is and that is the number of social initiations, right? And so now that's just add the chart element. So we got the axis title, horizontal, and then vertical, okay? So this is drug dosage, okay? And over here, this is the number of social initiations. Okay, I'm just gonna put this in the outline and then put this in the outline. Okay, so we are good. Okay, now what else is missing? Well, this thing is missing. Okay, the tick mark is missing. Tick marks, major type. Let's do the cross this time. Okay. Uh, okay. Now let me take a look at your textbook. Okay. Now, your textbook is, this is still rather incomplete in the sense that you still need error bars, okay? So what you'll actually need to do is to go up, okay, and enter these numbers into your Excel, okay, and start a new page. So the way that you probably want to do it is this. Okay, so you probably want to put it up here, 10 milligram, okay, 20 milligram, well actually 10 milligram and 10 milligram, and then 20 milligram, and then 20 milligram, okay. So that would be your dosage. Okay, and up here, you probably want to say that the therapy over here. So you will have group, sorry, we'll put individual first. individual, and then group, and then individual, I can't spell, I'm sorry. Okay, and then now, and then let's just kind of copy and paste these numbers that we got. What the heck? I'm just gonna copy over this again. Okay, so 12, 9, 11, and 15. Okay, and then, okay, 10 milligram group. 15, 15, 18. Okay, now 20 grams individual. 18, 15. Okay, and now do 18, 21, 20. Okay, so we now need to calculate out the standard error of the mean. Now you're probably thinking that, well, why didn't we just look for them somewhere in the SPSS? Because you'll see that when you look at here, the standard errors somehow the wrongful way that the SPS is calculating, they're giving you exactly the same number, which is just dead wrong. Okay, so the way that you need to calculate them out is the long way that you did them back in your chapter 3 or 4, I don't remember, but it shows you how to calculate out the standard error of the mean. So we got average, we got standard deviation, and we got count, and we got the standard error of the mean. Okay, so let's calculate out the average first. Okay, let's do that. Okay, and then the standard deviation, the count, I mean the n. Okay, so this is a number of the n. Click enter. And now the most important thing, so this, if you remember, the SEM is the standard deviation divided by the square root of the number. Okay, hit enter. So that is the standard error of the mean. Okay, and you'll see that all these numbers, they all got their own standard error of the mean. So they're not all exactly the same as what your SPSS is saying. Now the SPSS is, my guess is like probably average all these numbers together to get you that number. Let me see if I'm right. Am I right? Huh, not really. Okay. Well, so I don't know how they got this standard error then. Anyway, so this is the number that you're gonna have to put in there. Okay, so now that's copy paste this back into something like this. Okay, so as we said that these are the average, right? The numerical average, and then down here, let's make another one that says SEM. Okay, and then I'm just gonna make a box out of it so it's easier to see. Okay, and then so 10 milligram, 20 milligram, individual versus group. Okay, and then box, close that out. Okay, now individual and group that received 10 milligram. Okay, so individual and group. All right, so we're gonna copy this over, and then now you'll see that we need to do something special here, and that is to transpose it. Oh, sorry, I forgot that it's we need to transpose it as values. Okay, All right, so let's see if we're right. So 10 milligram individual, 10 milligram group, 10 in 10 milligram individual, 10 milligram group. Okay, so now let's do exactly the same thing over here. Okay, right click, paste special value and transpose. Okay, so now we have all of these things ready. What else do we need to do? Well, we need to apply the error bars. Okay, so the error bars over here is the group. Okay, so let's take a look at the group. So that would be this row over here. So okay, so click plus error bars, click this, go down to more options, scroll down, custom, specify value, and then that is the number that you need. Okay. All right, so now we're good. And now when we highlight the individual, okay, and do exactly the same thing to add in the more options and scroll down to custom, specify value and do this. Okay, just make sure that you're looking at the correct number. Okay, click OK. Yep, there you go. Okay. Are we done? I think we're basically done. I'm just fixing the num making it look a little bit prettier. Okay, and this number also make it 14. Okay. Okay. That's it. Okay. All right. Now that's it for this lesson. Oh, wait. I think we have one more to do on the bottom. Okay. Now. Okay, I am just going to clean up this and then I'll be back. Okay, now let's take a look at this scenario over here. Okay, a local police department is concerned of the increasing number of traffic violations committed by young drivers. They hire psychologists who specialized in safety training to work with these young drivers. The researcher believes that many young drivers simply do not know all of the rules of the road, and therefore he wishes to devise a program to better educate these new drivers. He does wonder how to best teach the rules, traditional book learning versus an online interactive program. At the end of the program, the drives completed a final exam. Okay, he gathers a sample of 32 young drivers. He learns that 14 of the drivers have received 2 or more tickets for traffic violations. The remaining 18 have not been ticketed. Given that the sample is clearly divided into 2 groups, violations versus none, he wonders if there will be differential effects of the teaching method on the exam scores. Okay. As a result, he tests half of each group under each of the teaching methods. The data exam score follows. Okay, now let's take a look at this. Okay, so the way that you want to set up this is something very similar to how you set up before. Okay, and you just want to say something like tickets or no. I'm just gonna say tickets. So variable view. Okay, so tickets. Uh, Actually, man, let me start up a new one. Okay, let's go variable view and tickets in the last here, and then down here we got teaching method. Okay, and wait, what do you mean? Then let's just say method. Okay, teaching method. And then down here, this is the score received on the driving test, right? Okay, so zero in the decimals, and now let's give it a value. Oh, sorry, the value over here. So 1 is going to be 2 or more tickets. Okay, add, and 2 is going to be no tickets, none. I'm gonna say no tickets. All right. Click OK, and then the value here, we're gonna have value 1 saying this is the book learning, and then value 2, we're gonna say this is inter learning. Okay, add and click OK. So now we can go to the data view. Now we are just gonna input all these people. Okay, so the first one is 2 or more. Okay, so I'm gonna copy this over. Okay, now now the method is this is going to book, right? So book control wait 1 second, control C, control V. Okay, so let me put in the scores like this. It might be easier so I don't make mistakes. Okay, now the next group we're going to look at is the one that received 2 or more tickets but used the interactive method. Okay, so wait, how many of these? All right, so another 7. Okay, so go down to 14, and then this is the inter. Okay, Control C, Control V. Okay, now 90, 86, 94, 93, 88, 90, and 86. Okay, now let's go to the next group, and these are the ones that received no tickets. Okay, so 2, none. Okay, so I think there's 9 of them, right? So 5, 2, I think 2 go to like 23 maybe 24. I don't know. Okay, so I'll know later. Okay, so this is gonna be book. Okay, okay. So ADA 93, 89, 81, 84, EA 84, 86, 80. Okay, so let's get rid of that. And then this one is going to be interactive. Okay, so just gonna copy this over down to I think 32, right? Okay, so we're good. Okay, 92, 94, 96, 85, 88, 1, 83, 84, 88. Okay, now we're good, right? So let's go to analyze. All right, let me just gonna make it full screen. Analyze general linear model, univariate. Dependent variable is a score, and then both of these are fixed factors. Okay, now let's go to EM compare means. All of these, load them in, compare mean effects for LSD. Okay, continue. Okay, now let's go to options and then click these 3 as well as the homogeneity test. I think that's it. Okay, continue, click OK. All right, now let's take a look to see what's going on. Okay, this is my first time looking at this as well, just like you guys. Okay. I think I did not erase this from the previous one. So let me do it again because I got all like mixed up. Uh, General linear model. So yeah, click yes. Okay, so interactive, blah blah blah. Okay. Well, essentially, there is an issue even with this data because when you look at the Levene's test of equality of error variances, this is actually a significant finding. So that means that using factorial ANOVA is not the best method to do this data. But anyway, we just can ignore that for now. Okay. So let's take a look at this. Okay. So the effect of the ticket, is this significant? Okay, it's not. 0.07. Okay, now the effect of the method, is there an overall main effect of the method? There is. Okay, so the method is really effective. Well, not effective. There's some major differences between interactive versus traditional book. Now, is there a interaction effect with ticket status versus the method? There is. So you can see that the p-value is 0.04. Okay, so that's a significant effect. All right, now, so how do we interpret the data? Well, something that I suggest you guys do while you are essentially writing your test is to do something that I would do as well, okay? And then that is to just like literally copy over these sentences and plug in the number. Okay, copy, paste. This is from what you had before, right? And then okay, so where is that? Let me close this out. Close the cell. Close the well, let me not close this cell, but well, let me close this out anyway. Oh man, where did the SPSS go? Okay, so the data are here. Right, so essentially, what are we looking at? Right, so now the analysis showed is there a significant effect of the ticket? We said that there wasn't, right? So analysis showed analysis did not show a significant effect of the ticket status on the test score received. Okay, and then you go to this divide. Okay, F1. So the numerator, as we see, is still 1, and denominator is still 28. On your test, is not going to be this easy. Okay, it's going to be some other numbers. Okay, now the number we're essentially plugging in here is this number. Okay, 3.36, and then P is greater than 0.05. Okay, now since that this is a non-significant effect, you don't report any of the means. So just delete them. Okay. Next, let's talk about the main effect of the methods. Okay. So I'm just gonna copy exactly the same sentence structure as before. The analysis did show a significant effect of the teaching method on the driver test score. Okay. then what do we write here? Okay, so now we're not going to touch this because basically it's the same, because you see uh, degree of freedom for numerator for method 1, degree of freedom for the denominator is 28, so it's exactly the same. Now what is the F value here? 13.53. Okay, so 13.53. Okay, P is greater than, oh sorry, is less than 0.05. Okay, now the mean number of test score is significantly higher in, well, let's see. So ticket, we don't care because that was not significant results. Okay, so now this is, look, interactive versus book. Okay, so the mean of the test score is higher for those that were taught with the interactive program. Okay, and then the mean is 89.29, just round to the hundreds. Okay, then those taught with the traditional book method, right? And I'm just gonna erase this. M method of the mean of 81.94. Okay. Now let's take a look at the interaction effect. Okay. Now, so this last one, what I'm going to attempt to do is, sorry, I'm just gonna make this slightly smaller so all of you can see. Okay, this last one I'm gonna do is just basically look at the interaction effect and just write it myself. Okay, okay. The analysis showed a significant interaction effect between teaching method and the ticket status on the driver test score. Okay, now you have F, the numerator is 1, and the denominator is 28, okay, equals this number here, 4.49. 4.49. Okay, P less than 0.05. Okay, now then you need to sort down to here, the ticket by method. Okay, now let's take a look at this first. Okay, it looks like in the method, the method between the interactive and book is very exaggerated in the ones that had 2 tickets or more over here, because you can see that 89.57 versus 78. So there is like a whopping 11.57 differences, okay? As opposed to here in the the people who did not receive ticket, this effect in this effect of difference in teaching is not as pronounced, right? So 89 versus 85.889. I mean, there's some advantages in the interactive, but then not this exaggerated differences in the people with the 2 ticket or more. Okay, so what you want to write is that, okay, the effect of method, the effect of teaching method is more pronounced in drivers with 2 tickets or more, in which the interactive method of outperformed the ones that were taught with the traditional book. And then you can type in n equals 78. Okay. However, such difference is diminished in the drivers with no prior tickets, right? And then you can say that the ones with the ones taught with interactive method did not perform that much better than the ones taught with traditional book. 85.89. Oh, so M, sorry. There you go. So the end of the interpretation, what you want to give is something that overall the type of teaching method is more effective in drivers who has previously been indicted, okay, with 2 or more tickets. The type of teaching method, I'm gonna put in parentheses here, interactive, okay, and then you can say such differences is not as dramatic in drivers with not as dramatic in drivers with no previous tickets, something like that. Okay, so that's how you would interpret the data. All right, now let's see how we can deal with the entire Excel. Okay, let's go back to this number. Hold on a second. Okay, let's go down to where the numbers actually are. Okay, now that just made this from the beginning, and I'll show you how you should graph the actual data. Okay, so as we said before, we're gonna have tickets in the last year, tickets last year, okay, and we're gonna have 2 or more. And here we're gonna have none, right? And then over here, oh, sorry, so 2 or more, none, none, okay. And over here, we're gonna have the teaching method, and this is gonna be book, interactive, book, interactive, okay. gonna capitalize this for consistency's sake. Okay, now let's put in all the data. Okay, you can fast forward this if you want. Okay, two or more interactive. Okay, so oh, oops. Yeah, I think there's one more down here, 88. Okay, now let's calculate out the average standard deviation number and the SEM. Okay, so okay, so equals average. Okay, standard deviation. Okay, number of people, and then the SEM. So this equals standard deviation divided by 7. Okay. Okay. Now here, I'm just going to redo it again because as you can see, we have unequal n here. All right, and the standard deviation over here, press enter, the number of the n count. So it's going to say 9. Okay. And then now standard error, so standard error equals standard deviation, sorry, damn, equals standard deviation divided by square root of the n. Okay, so all right, so we're good. Now let me go back to this, and now let's make a table. Okay, so we are going to have a up here 2 or more, and then we over here we're gonna have none. Okay, and down here we're going to have book. Down here we're gonna have interactive. Okay, so 2 or more interactive. Okay, so let's just type in these for now. So essentially, well, if you want to use like your copy and paste, that's fine too, but you just need to look carefully. Okay, so 2 or more is here, 2 or more is here. So we need to revert this, and we need to do something that we did last time, and that's to value transpose to make sure that the conditions are exactly that matches up what you want to have in here. Okay, so these are the numerical averages. Okay, and then copy this over and then paste value transpose. All right, so we're good here. So I'm just gonna make a big box out of this. Okay, now let's make another box over here on the SEM. Okay, SEM, and we're just gonna copy and paste very similarly of what we did before, values transpose. Okay, and then up here do exactly the same thing, values, transpose, click OK. All right, now I'm just gonna get rid of this because if you get if you have that in there while you are well, I'll show you. You know, it's kind of hard to if you don't erase this while you're doing that, you're gonna end up with something that's rather funky. Well, actually, you don't. Okay, let's keep it in there. Okay, so this is what the bare bone minimum chart looks like, right? Okay, now let's get rid of the grid lines. Okay, now let's do the chart title first. So what is the chart title? It should be something like the effect of ticket status, and teaching method on driving test score, right? Okay, so we're good with this. Now let's format the axis. What's this happen? Let's go to this line. Let's go to make this black and do exactly the same thing and make it black. Okay. All right. Now let's just add the chart element. Okay. Now let's chart design, add chart element, and then go to axis titles. Do for the horizontal and then do it for the vertical. Okay. Now the axis title for the x-axis should be what? It should be the uh, status of how many tickets received, something like that, right? Okay, now the axis title for the y-axis, that's the outcome, right? So that is the driving test score. It doesn't get any simpler than that. Okay. Now we're not 100% done yet. Let's go to format axis and go down here. The tick marks, let's add in inside. That looks pretty good. Okay, now are we done yet? We're not, you know, and the whole reason we're doing this is because we want to input the error bars. Okay, so click on this. Which one is this? This is the interactive. Okay, so let's add this, error bars, more options, scroll down to customs, specify value, this. Okay, interactive. Okay, so highlight this, do this again. Okay. Okay, now let's do this for the traditional book. Okay, error bars, more options, go down, customs, specify value, books. Okay, so highlight this and do this again. Click OK. Now, why does it keep screwing up like this? You know, like before, and that's because your y-axis keeps shifting. So if you want, you should go to the format axis, and you can set the minimum here to like a bigger value, something. Let's say like 60 is probably something that is ideal. Press enter and you can see something that is more similar to what you saw before. Okay, so I think that's it. Okay, I'm just gonna kind of fix this, tidy up a little bit. Book interaction. Wait, hold on a second. So 14, this is already 14. 14, 14, 14, and 14. So just make sure like all the fonts are exactly the same. So it's easier on the test grader's eyes, which is me. Okay, so All right, so that is looking pretty good. Okay, so that's it for this lesson. So all you need to do when you have the test like this, you need to copy and paste onto the actual Word file. Okay, so I think that's it. Okay, I just want to thank you for a wonderful semester. And then if you have any more questions, just feel free to email me.